Who does Adam Schefter think you should select with the #1 pick in fantasy drafts? He'll tell you next.
Dominate your draft and win your league. This is Locked On Fantasy Football with Babs and Marcus. Babs brings the expertise, Marcus brings the fire. Together, they'll lead you to the championship. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano, the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer. And we've got a special guest for you guys today. It's the one and only Adam Schefter from ESPN. Adam, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Marcus, Michael, nice to be with you guys.
Oh, Shefty, it's so good to see you. We go back so far, like the NFL Network days back when NFL.com just went in-house. It's been a long time, and always proud of you, my friend, because you've done great things in the industry, man. So always very proud of you. I do have some very pressing questions for you, and a lot of it is going to have to do with injuries. You play fantasy football, so you feel our pain. It seems like there's been a lot of injuries already during camp and in this preseason time, but most notably San Francisco, where it seems like everyone's hurt. So what is your take on what's been going on in San Francisco? Not only just this training camp and preseason time, but last year. And I also want to ask you about Christian McCaffrey, because you're kind of like the Christian McCaffrey whisperer. You were in on him last year, not the previous year. So give me your take on what's going on with the Niners. And is Christian McCaffrey still on your radar in fantasy?
Oh, he's on my radar. Absolutely. Like the number of touches that he gets and the role that he has in that offense are undeniable. The part you worry about is the workload he's coming off of, the age, like all the obvious things that everybody knows. I'll look at him. I'm typically not a guy that drafts veteran, older running backs. Not something that I usually do. He is an anomaly. He is a different guy. He's something of a cyborg, to be honest, the way he takes care of his body. So I don't have any problems with anybody that wants to go in that direction. But again, it just doesn't fit the profile of what I usually look for in fantasy.
Adam, I want to ask you about the Giants and Malik Nabers, because that was one situation that, we just had no idea all offseason, not long. We were surprised that he avoided the PUP. We see him out there practicing. Do you expect him to be full go for week 1?
Well, full go, he's looked good this summer. And I'm sure they're going to ramp him back up. Like, I don't know that he's playing 65 plays on opening night against the Dallas Cowboys, but it certainly feels like it is trending towards him playing that Sunday night opener against the Cowboys. And as we know, players come back from ACL injuries. They get better as the year goes on. They feel better 2 years after they usually have gone through an injury like that. Saying that, Malik Nabers is a freak. And, his 80% of Malik Nabers is still better than 98% of the receivers in the league. So, again, another guy that don't have a problem drafting. Think you're probably going to be a little patient on him early on, but he's going to have some blow-up games. He should, at least.
But you have, no long-term concerns. Like, by the time we get to October, November, we should expect a fairly healthy Malik Nabers.
Again, I think 2027 Malik Nabers will be better than 2026 Malik Nabers, but 2026 Malik Nabers is going to be worth having on your team.
There you go.
Shefty, I want to go back to the Niners. George Kittle tears his Achilles earlier this year, and reports have come out that he may be back in time for week 1. I don't know if that's going to be the case. You would know better than I. But as a reporter and the top insider, how much are you now taking into consideration PRP injections, peptides, in terms of how it's speeding up the recovery of some of these players?
Well, he's come out to torn Achilles, and there are two different types of surgeries. There's the one that is probably better in the long run, but doesn't bring you back as soon. And then there's the speed bridge one. And it sounds like I think he opted for the speed bridge surgery, which enables you to come back quicker and sooner. So, I think some people have raised some questions about the long-term viability of it. I don't know if there are studies done on people who tear Achilles and have the traditional surgery compared to the speed. I'm not here to debate that. I'm not smart enough in those areas. but it sounds like he had the speed bridge surgery. It sounds like he's tracking where he should be. It sounds like they're optimistic he'll be there opening up, but they have not committed to that. George Kittle's a freak. He's always going to be out there. The thing about fantasy this year, tight end, I think there's so many good tight ends at so many levels. Like, again, I have no doubt that George Kittle is going to be an effective performer, but that's not the kind of guy. He doesn't fit the profile of what I would be drafting, as great a player as he is.
Well, and Anna, doesn't it just make sense from like a real life perspective for the 49ers to ease him back in? Like, they need him for January, not early in September. And if you're a fantasy football fan, and obviously you are because you're listening to this podcast, my concern would be that we see Kittle on the field, but on a reduced snap count, and we see them ramping it up as we get later in the year. So that's partially why I've just been avoiding him, because I think the 49ers are just a smart organization, and they know that September just doesn't matter as much as January does.
Well, again, they're going to do the right thing, just like the Giants are going to do the right thing with Nabers. And when you have a player coming off a significant injury, he's not going to be 100% week one, just not going to be. But 80% of George Kittle in week one might be good enough, to get you 6 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. We don't know exactly how it's going to go. They'll be smart and judicious in the way they use him. He's an unbelievable player. He's a Hall of Fame tight end. Again, but he's an older tight end coming off Achilles. So do you want that in fantasy, or do you want, you pick the guy. There are a lot of good fantasy tight ends this year. A lot.
Adam, I want to ask you about another injured player, Luther Burden, who is maybe the hottest name of the summer in fantasy football.
Washington?
Well, that's a good.
It's close.
It's close. You're right. Parker Washington's the other one, but Burden tweaked his groin in the last week. Now, the latest update is that it's not super serious, but do you expect him to be ready for week one?
Yes. Yes. But again, it's one of those things. A month out, can I say that he's going to be out there 100%? No, like he might play 2/3 of the plays. He might play half the play. I don't know how that's going to go. Like, they're going to see. And those are the things that develop over the remaining weeks of the summer. Do I think he's going to be 100% by week one? No, I think there's going to be some questions, and it wouldn't shock me if there happen to be some limitations. I just don't know how many.
So I'm interested, and this question kind of just popped into my head. All of us in the fantasy football world, we're always listening to you and Glazer and Rapp and all of these beat writers. At what point, being Adam Schefter, do you start really paying attention to some of these beat writer reports that suggest this player's been playing out of his mind, like, say, Denzel Boston in Cleveland, and you start making mental notes? Or is it all kind of just like, all right, I'm taking it in, and I take it with a grain of salt, because what happens on Tuesday at practice may not be the same thing that happens on Wednesday. It's like, how do you process this information? Because, I mean, you're like us. You're a fantasy football manager.
I like to think that I'm aware of most things that are being said out there, being written out there. I track it just like you all track it. But then I have the advantage of being able to speak to various coaches and front office members to gather my own thoughts on these things and to further crystallize my thinking before I make my fantasy recommendations for the season. We do a tip sheet on ESPN.com later in the end of the summer. I've obviously a lot of people that call me and ask me for tips, and I'm in 2 leagues, so I'm always very, very curious and careful and cautious and calculate all those things when I'm putting together my fantasy football league team. Like, okay, so I hear Denzel Boston is lighting it up. Okay, like, I'm going to be speaking to some Browns people and hear what they have to say. And then I'll be like, okay, yeah, boy, this guy sounds like he's going to be real. Like, it happens all the time. I spoke with, one head coach today, right before this phone call. Been hearing a lot of reports about one guy. I asked about this guy. And I didn't hear what been coming out, but that's okay. And by the way, a lot of times, coaches are more glass half empty than glass half full anyway. So I factor that in too, right? Like, there's a lot of things you have to weigh before making judgments on whether you are or not drafting somebody.
Adam, last question, because I know you're super busy this time of year. You've got the number 1 pick. Who are you drafting?
I think, in all honesty, I'm in 2 leagues. I'm in a 12-team league. We drew the 5th slot this week. Don't love that. Um, I'm in the ESPN league, 16 teams. We're gonna do the lottery this week. I'm happy with 1 or 2. I'm happy with 1 or 2. Um, Honestly, I don't care which of those 2 guys I get. Like, give me either one. Give me liberty, give me death. Like, all
So I'm assuming you're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. Those are the 2 guys that you want.
Of course. Yeah,
They're
that goes thing. And if I had the number 1 pick, it just the way Dan Campbell's talked about Jahmyr Gibbs and the upside, like that's awfully enticing. And it feels like the Lions should have a better season than the Falcons. Maybe I'm wrong there. So I like great players on great teams. And Gibbs fits that a little bit more than Bijan, but Bijan is special. Like, those are the 2 guys you want. And if you can open them, great. But I haven't had a top pick in fantasy in football years.
sound a little bitter. That's all right. Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. Make sure you follow him on X at Adam Schefter. Follow all of his great work over on ESPN. And next, we're going to talk about that Carolina Panthers backfield. This episode is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. And that's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. Because the best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. I mean, I've said all offseason long, I don't think the Seahawks were the most talented team in the NFL last year, but they communicated extremely well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why they ultimately took home the Lombardi Trophy. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That is odoo.com/locked on. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Fabs, I want to talk about the Carolina Panthers backfield situation because we were recording yesterday when the news broke that Chuba Hubbard is dealing with a multi-week hamstring injury. We were already concerned about Jonathan Brooks. How much is this going to affect not only just Brooks's ADP, but Hubbard's as well?
We tend to react very strongly in fantasy football. So, and I did. I moved Brooks ahead of Hubbard. He was already ahead in Dynasty. That's an obvious ranking decision, but he's now ahead of Hubbard in redraft. And Dave Canales came out and said that he still expects that Hubbard's going to be ready for week 1. But I mean, what happens between now and then if Brooks, who's now going to start preseason games, what if he's just dynamite, man? What if he is electric? What if he looks like the dude from Texas before all the knee injuries? You telling me that that's not going to make an impact on ultimately who's going to be the starter in week 1? I think it does. Now, could Canales decide whether they're going to just go with the veteran if he's right in week 1? Okay, makes sense. But that's going to be a committee. And I think at some point, and maybe it's going to be sooner rather than later now, Marcus, Jonathan Brooks has got a really good shot at taking over that job, much like Rico Dowdle did last year. So it's funny because things change so much, and this is why I don't have my drafts until like the end of August or in this point, like the first week of September. There were times where I was like, Chuba Hubbard could be a pretty good draft bargain. And now, now I don't know if I want anything to do with him. Why? Because he's got the hamstring. When you see a player is week to week, that's a red flag. But since that time, Brooks has been phenomenal. He's been getting rave reviews at Panthers camp, and things just change like that, right? I mean, do you remember the movie Roadhouse, where
Yeah, of course. The good one or the
one
bad
of the
one?
great movies of all time, where one of the bouncers questioned Patrick Swayze because he wasn't big, And then, of course, Dalton says, well, opinions vary. Well, opinions vary big time in fantasy football. And my opinion has changed from I like Chuba Hubbard as a potential draft bargain to I don't know if I want Chuba Hubbard. I'm kind of digging on this Jonathan Brooks, especially because it looks like the knee issues are not a problem right now.
So I want to go back to Jonathan Brooks really quickly because the latest batch of ADP we have is RB33. Now that's obviously going to change. He's going to jump up significantly.
How high though?
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
How high is too high, Marcus?
Well, and that's that's what I wanted to get to. Let's play a little game. You tell me who you'd prefer right now here on August 14th.
Okay.
Ramondre Stevenson, RB29.
No, I'd rather have Brooks.
Okay. Tony Pollard, RB28.
Brooks.
Jalen Warren, RB27. And again, I'm assuming PPR in all of these leagues.
I have Brooks one spot ahead of Warren.
Okay, so then Jadarian Price, who we talked about on yesterday's show.
I have Price one spot ahead of Brooks.
Do you feel great about it?
Yeah, I feel good about that.
Okay,
I think because ultimately I would not be surprised if both players were leading a committee.
The one that I struggle with is Bashal Tutin, who is RB25.
I've got Tutin at 22 right now.
So obviously you're higher. I just don't like some of the things you're hearing from Jacksonville beat reporters. Not that Tutin does look bad, but like that could be a full-on committee with like LaQuint Allen playing a lot on passing downs and Chris Rodriguez spelling in. I just wonder with Brooks, like there's an opportunity here for him to really take over this backfield. But I also don't want to overreact because this could be a thing like where we get to week 3 and Hubbard's pretty healthy and it's a full-on committee on an offense that we think is average at best.
Okay, so let's look, and I'm going to look at my rankings here because I updated the running backs over on Sports Illustrated. I'm going to do the wide receivers tomorrow. Once you get past, and not for nothing, maybe Quinshon Judkins, I have him at RB19. Everybody from that spot on is potentially in a committee.
I mean, I don't disagree.
Okay. Cam Scatabo could be in a committee. I mean, he wasn't last year when he was healthy, but he could be. Swift could be in a committee with Moonen guy in Chicago. Tutin, you just said, could be in a committee. We've heard that David Montgomery is going to be the guy in Houston, but they're going to use Woody Marks. Bucky Irving is going to be in the committee with Kenneth Gainwell. Jadarian Price is going to be in a committee eventually with Zach Charbonnet. Jonathan Brooks could be in a committee with Hubbard. Jalen Warren could be in a committee and will be in a committee with Rico Dowdle. You get my point. So I think once you get to that spot in the rankings at the running back position, Marcus, you just got to say who's got the highest potential ceiling out of the players in that backfield because there's not going to be a featured role to be found unless somebody gets hurt.
I think that's why my strategy this year has been if I can get a running back in round 1, get a receiver in round 2, and then I really like the range of running backs between like Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, Javonte Williams. Like if I can get one of those guys just to be my RB2 and just avoid that RB20 to RB30 range, if at all possible, I just think that's the best strategy this year because so many of those guys are on or in committees in offenses that we just don't know what they're going to look like this year.
But doesn't that mean that you have to get 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds?
Yeah, and that's my plan. Is I'm trying to take really honestly, 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds is what I'm going for here.
Okay, and that's a viable strategy. I've been getting a lot of Judkins in round 5,
which is fine.
And so, like, I'm happy with that because, I'm going to take a running back with one of my first 2 picks.
He's one of the few that I do like, and I like to call it like the RB dead zone. He's one of the ones I do like.
He has avoided the dead zone. He is not in the dead zone, so he is in the alive zone, I guess.
Sure.
So, that's like, would I mind having Scatabo as my RB2? No, I wouldn't mind it. Would I mind having Swift as my RB2?
It doesn't feel great.
It doesn't feel great. I mean, even Tutin, because of the reasons you said, doesn't feel great. But I'm trying to project which players in these backfields I think are going to have the best opportunity to see. And it's not going to be a featured workload, but at least the best share of the workload in these committees. And it's tough prognostication. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, and that's why we get paid the big bucks to do it.
Where are the big bucks?
All right, let's talk about DeVonta Smith because this is a player going into the year, I have really wanted to be above ADP on because the role is so great. However, he's not making it super easy on us. Let's talk about DeVonta Smith and the rest of the Eagles receivers next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick on who you think is hitting a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day of games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on the matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep, and now you get the chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. Baseball has been awesome this summer. It's got us through a lot of the dead zone of sports, and this is a great way to earn free bets. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all of the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Travis, I want to talk about the Eagles wide receivers because, as I mentioned before the break, I really wanted to be high on DeVonta Smith because I so believe in the player. I think he can be a easy wide receiver one. Whenever he's gotten a chance to be the alpha receiver in Philadelphia, he's been awesome. His current ADP is wide receiver 13. He has missed a ton of practice time with lower body issues. It's a new offense, new offensive coordinator. Are you concerned?
I'm not as concerned about Smith as I am Lemon,
Well,
to
let's
be
let's talk
honest.
about Lemon as well,
Right.
because Lemon has missed basically
Yeah.
the entire offseason with a hamstring injury, and now still missing time. And I saw on Thursday that he was working on the jugs machine out, off to the side of practice, and it feels like Dontavian Wicks has passed him on the depth chart.
Right, and so that's an issue, and I am a fan of Lemon in Dynasty, that doesn't matter, but when you're talking redraft, I mean, no practice on Thursday, he's got the hamstring thing going on, he's missed so many reps in camp, so my guess is that, like, early in the season, he's not gonna have a huge role, and once he gets up to speed, gets healthy, then maybe we start to see Mekhi Lemon, be the guy that we thought could be maybe the second or third most targeted player in this offense. But I have dropped him in redraft. I mean, right now he's barely in my top 40 wide receivers. He's right in that like Michael Wilson, Quentin Johnston range, where before he was closer to the 30s. So some I've got some issues now with Lemon in redraft. Going back to DeVonta Smith, uh, I think that the Eagles are being really cautious with him. They don't want something that is relatively minor to turn into something major because I mean, if Smith gets hurt and we've got Lemon who's clearly banged up, all of a sudden the Eagles wide receiver group is Ontavian Wicks and Hollywood Brown. I mean, so it's not great. So I haven't moved Smith anywhere. He's still sort of in that, wide receiver 2 range where I feel pretty confident about him. But like Mekhi Lemon, no question about that. He has moved down in the rankings. We're talking redraft dynasty. I'm not moving him, but you have to beware and keep tabs on what's going on because I think Mekhi Lemon's going to end up having a very slow start to his rookie
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, and I'm not concerned long term. I think Lemon's going to be just fine. A lot of rookie receivers have a hard time transitioning from college to the NFL, especially if they're dealing with injuries. It's always a long process, so it's just not that big of a deal. Remember at this time last year, I don't think Luther Burden had even practiced yet as he was dealing with some hamstring tightness. And then he goes on to have a really good rookie year, and now everybody's drafting him in the 4th round. Like it's just not that big of a deal. But for Smith, part of me is just concerned with the frame. He's 170 pounds at 6'1". Is it more that they're just concerned, like, hey, this guy's going to have to take on a huge workload. Let's not overload him in practice. Or is he not going to be able to hold up to this kind of big workload? I just don't know.
I mean, there are questions, by the way. My dog is driving me nuts. He's barking outside. That's why I'm like, Be quiet, Kylo. That's what happens when you do your show from home. But anyways, and my dog is louder than Marcus, who has 3 kids. So I mean, go figure. But Smith is also not like the most, let's just say, physically imposing guy, right?
No,
I
no,
mean, he's not Todd Pinkston, but he's not the
good
most
pull.
physically imposing guy, and he's never been the alpha in Philadelphia because that had always been AJ Brown. So this does bring up some questions about whether or not he's going to be able to hold up for an entire season, But right now, again, I'm not moving. I'm not going to overreact. But with Lemon, I think there is some reason to react, and that's why I've moved him down among wide receivers into more of like the wide receiver 4 range.
So, really quickly on Smith before we go. Let's say you're having a big draft this weekend, and I don't know, maybe the league has been together for like 25 years and it's like 18 teams or so. I mean, I'm not trying to be too specific here.
This
The
sounds
draft
like your league.
2:30 in the afternoon. Couple of receivers. I just want you to tell me who you would prefer. Rashee Rice or DeVonta Smith?
Oh man, I mean, you're probably going Rice there.
See, I would go
Uh,
Smith.
yeah, I have Rice right now at 14. I've got Smith at 17, but I'm really high on like Emeka Buka and Ted McMillan, so I have those guys ahead of Devontae Smith. Maybe you don't. I'm probably going to go Rashee Rice there, though.
Malik Nabers, after what our guy Adam Schefter just said about him.
No, Malik Nabers.
I think I would go Smith there, but I'm not sure. What
See,
about
you are really like bullish on Smith, but you always have
well, I
been.
mean, Schefter
You
just
always have been, though.
Schefter just basically told us, like, he's not gonna be 100% healthy at all at this point in the season, or at any point in the 2026 season.
Well, he said he'd be better in 2027, but
Well, that
he
that to
also
me,
said
that
that
means
80% of neighbors is better than 100% a lot of
well,
receivers in the
that's
league.
true, but I don't know if he's better than DeVonta Smith, who was a Heisman Trophy winner. That's all. Uh,
Yeah, listen, Tim Tebow was a Heisman Trophy winner.
DeVonta Smith is a good player. I again, as
I
you
know.
can
I'm just
tell,
I'm just having fun with you.
I wanna be high on DeVonta Smith. I want him on my teams, and honestly, if I can again, my strategy has been get a running back early. If DeVonta Smith is my wide receiver 1, so be it. Load up on running backs because I think you can find wide receiver depth later in your drafts.
I also feel like a term that you've used a lot is the Eagles have a low volume passing
It's
offense.
true.
So, and I think Kansas City is going to be in a lot of high scoring games. I don't know if their defense is going to be as good as it was last year, clearly, but I think there's risk in both. And maybe there's a little bit more risk in Rashee Rice. I'd still rather have Rashee Rice right now.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day.
And
We'd also
thank
like
you, Adam Schefter,
there you go. You
for
took some
joining the
words.
program. Sorry, I just completely
Friend of the
just
show, Adam Schefter, now we can officially say.
correct.
The Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And again, don't miss my reaction when I heard Quinnen Williams.
I
Listen to
think
the
we
80s.
need to play that on this
It's
show
just shocking.
next week. We need to play it.
We'll see. All
I
right,
want that audio.
follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday.